Hello guys, this is the first part of ASP.NET MVC series. This is the database first approach, and in this series we will be learning how to develop ASP.NET MVC applications using database first approach. If you have not watched my videos on ASP.NET MVC code first approach, and if you are willing to watch those videos and carry on with the code first approach, you can visit my channel here. I have uploaded all these 30 videos on ASP.NET MVC code first approach, and this is the real-time chat application where we can learn how to manage the real-time scenarios in some kind of project of ASP.NET MVC. So I am making these videos for the beginners and the intermediate developers. So if you are an advanced developers, you have to be patient if you are watching the videos, because these videos are for the beginners and for the advanced for the intermediate developers. So this course is for beginners and intermediate developers, and in this video we will try to learn what is an ASP.NET MVC, downloading and installing Visual Studio IDE, integrated development environment, and creating our first ASP.NET MVC application. So let's jump to Visual Studio. So if you have not already installed Visual Studio, you can visit this link here. You can install Visual Studio 2019. If it's not stable for now, you can install the Visual Studio 2017 version, or even if you have Visual Studio 2015, you can also continue with this series. So it's a good practice if you have installed the latest version like Visual Studio 2017 or 2019, then it's good. If you have not already installed, you can download the community edition and install it. And when you are going to select the components, basically when you install Visual Studio asks you for the components that you want to install. So make sure you install all the components related to web development. You check the C# component, and you also check all the web components. So let's jump to Visual Studio. When you have installed Visual Studio, you will see this main page something like this, and these are the recent projects that I have made. And if you have newly installed Visual Studio, so you will be missing these projects because you have not made any projects in your Visual Studio. So you will find some kind of link like this, create new project. So let's click on create new project. So if this is not expanded already, you have to click on C# expand it, and then you select the web node, and inside that you select the ASP.NET web application. You can name your project anything you want. So let's name it first, and or let me name it as demo first. And you can change the location of your project, and let me change it to F drive. Make a new folder here, ASP database database first approach. So inside this folder I'm going to save my demo first project. So check out the latest version of .NET Framework and then you click OK. Guys, if you are new to ASP.NET MVC, I would highly recommend you to search something like what is ASP.NET or search it as MVC on MSDN, Microsoft Developer Network. So you can read the documentation here. You can view the things like ASP.NET MVC 5. This tutorial teaches you the core MVC controllers and views, raises pages, and you can learn the things which are theoretical and basic from here. And let's go back to VL Studio, and I hope you know what is ASP.NET MVC. So let's create project in our ASP.NET MVC application. So basically you find some kind of screen like this when you name your project, and then you are going to choose the authentication. So by default it's selected no authentication, but in some Visual Studio version you will have individual user accounts authentication here. So if it's individual user accounts authentication, you have to change it back to no authentication, because in individual user accounts we get some built-in pages for registration, login and reset password, and all the database tables related to the users management. So for now, because we are beginners, we do not need any kind of auto-generated code. We want to start from scratch. So we have to select this no authentication, and then we have to click OK. As you click OK, you will see your project will be created. So there are not many steps to create the project. First you have to click on create new project, and then you select Visual C#. Under that you select web, and then you select ASP.NET MVC application, and you name your project. If you want to change the location of your project folder, you can change it, and then you just click on MVC template, and you can go online from here, and you can read more on what is MVC. So high level introduction is given here, a project template for creating ASP.NET MVC applications. ASP.NET MVC applications allows you to build applications using model view controller architecture, and ASP.NET MVC includes many features that enable fast test-driven development for creating applications that use the latest standards. So this is the high-level introduction to the ASP. About MVC, and let's click OK and create our new project. So that's it, guys. That's it, guys, for how we can create a new ASP.NET web application project. So let's wait a while. So whenever you create your new ASP.NET MVC application, you find a page something like this, and this page is basically an information given by ASP.NET MVC framework, sorry, Microsoft. These are the useful links that you can click on, and you can know how to build your app, get started with ASP.NET application architecture, publish your app to Azure, and get started with the ASP.NET on Azure, and so on. So it's up to you. If you want to visit, you can visit it, and it's a good thing to explore the things. So if you are a beginner, you should explore the things. So I just close it for now, and before we start anything else, let me tell you one thing. This is the Solution Explorer, and here your project folder structure is being displayed. So if it is not available here and you want to bring it here, let me close it. This is not no more here, and if you want to get it back, you should go to View, and you should click here to Solution Explorer. So this will be again tucked in here. So this is the basic structure of your ASP.NET MVC application. You have named your project as demo project. Under that you have these folders. So inside this demo project solution, you have this folder structure, and you can see we have controllers folder added already, models folder added already, and views folder is also added already. So let's begin with what are the controllers. As I have already told you that controllers control our application. In other words, controllers communicate with models and views, and prepare the screen for the user, or prepare the view for the user. So let's understand how the ASP.NET MVC application works. So if I hit Control F5, or if Control F5 is not working for you, you should press Control function key and F5 simultaneously, or if all these are not working, you can just press F5 or this play button. So this will start your application. You will see in a while your application running on your browser. By default here my browser is selected as Google Chrome. You can change it to some other Chrome if you want. So it's running. It will take a while, and it will show the output here. Let me check what the things we have to discuss. First thing, what is ASP.NET MVC, downloading and installing. If you are having some kind of issues how to install ASP, how to install Visual Studio IDE, I will share the link of from where you can download it. But if you don't know how to install, you should query on YouTube, and you will find some video of about 2 to 3 minutes. It's very easy to install Visual Studio. Don't worry about that. You should YouTube it, and you can easily install. It's very easy. And then we are learning now creating our first application that we have already created, and it's running in browser. So its output is something like this, and it is running on port 52497, and if we click on home, it's the home page, and if we click on about, we see the URL is updated to home/about, and if we click on contact, so we see this page. And if I again click on application name, or on home controller, or sorry, on home link, we go back to the home page and let's see how MVC is rendering this output. Before we go into the detail how this home view is being rendered, let me first show you how can we render over on I mean to say, how can we customize this view on default running form. Let me go back to Visual Studio. Let me return a string from here. Let me return, let's get started with ASP.NET MVC database. First approach, put a semicolon here. So because we are now returning a string, so we have to change the return type to string. Let me show you the error. Cannot implicitly convert type string to action result. So it's basically true, so we have to change the return type of this action method to string. So we have changed it to string, and if I run it, you will see the output will be the string we are writing over there. So you can see the output here. So if it's confusing a little for you guys now, you don't need to be worried. Whenever we are starting something new, we get difficulties. It's natural phenomena. If you remember, when you started to learn, I usually quote this example to my students, that when we started to learn alphabets like A, B, C, D in our childhood, it was very difficult to learn A, B and C, and if the teacher gave us the lesson A, B, C, D, E at once, we found problems. And it may be funny for you guys, you may be laughing or thinking what's going on in this video, but I want to just motivate you people by telling you the realities, because whenever we start learning something new, it seems something difficult, but when we spend some time on it and we keep on struggling and we do enough practice on that thing, we get familiar with the concepts, and we get used to it, and we get experience by the way. So if it's confusing for now, don't worry, we will be discussing all the things in details, and if you are tired up, you should pause the video. You should have some kind of drink, or you could have something that can make you relax. So when you are relaxed, you can come back and start the video over. So if you want to have a break, you should have a break. Okay, hope you are relaxed now. Let's again discuss how we are getting this output. So this method is responsible for this output. So how is it possible? So guys, in MVC, MVC follows the pattern given by this controller name, and this is the action method name. Basically this is a controller class. If I minimize it, if I again expand it, you can see all the functions. These functions are known as action methods. Action methods. In Java we say the methods, in C++ we can say the functions, and here we say in ASP.NET MVC context we we call these special functions as action methods, and because these methods respond an action on user request. Let me run this action method. To run this action method, you have to put slash after this localhost and port number slash. You have to write the controller name, and it's you have just to write the controller name before this controller keyword. So you just write this controller name. Now I am going to run this method. So for that, I should first write the controller name home, and then I have to put slash. Let me write home, and then I have to put slash, and then I will write this action method name. So if I want to run the about action method of home controller, then I would write something like this: home slash about, and hit enter. So you will see that it will render you the about view of home controller. So if you want to run this action method of home controller, so what would you write? Can you guess it? I hope you can guess it. You will write the home controller, which is already written, and then you will write contact, that is the action method name. So let me write some action method name which is not present in this home controller class. Let me write something like contact 123. There is no action method in home controller with contact 123 name. Let me hit enter, and you will see the error, the resource cannot be found. And this is technically true. It is looking for the requested URL is home controller and contact 123 action method, and you guys know that there is no action method with this name in this controller. So this error is technically true. So let me change it back to contact, and now you can see the output. So where this view is present, let me show you. This view is present in views folder, and how MVC knows that the contact view is present in views folder and inside this home folder. So basically MVC follows the conventions. So if we discuss about this, let me discuss about the about action method. So you might be wondering how MVC finds the view of this about action method, because here we are not returning any kind of string, but if I go to about, we find this kind of output. So how this output is being rendered? So let me show how this output is being formatted and how it is being returned by ASP .NET MVC application. So far we have learned how to execute this action method, but we do not know how MVC is returning this output, this view, against this about action method. So let me show you that. Guys, look at this. We do not pass any path, any parameter over here inside this view. So how MVC knows? So the concept is very simple. MVC checks the controller name of this action method. This action method name is about, and the controller name is home. And whatever controller you have, you will see the under the views folder, you will see the same name folder in views. you can see here you have home controller. So by home, by the word home, you will definitely have a folder inside a views folder. So if here is a home controller, you will be having home folder here. If tomorrow you add another controller here, student controller, you will have a student folder here for student controllers views. So we have home controller and we have home folder inside views folder. So if I expand it, you will see the views of these action methods. So if I have index action method, I have index.cshtml view for this action method, and the output of this action method of this view will be is being made here. So if you have about action method, you have about view inside this home folder, and if you have here the contact action method, and you have the contact action method here, and you have the contact view here, and this is the output which is being shown over here. So this is the heading, this is the heading 2, this is heading 3, and this is the address tag. Inside that you have all these things, and this is the output which is being formatted by these tags. So if you are still wondering how it's happening, let me again tell you. If you want to have some pause, you can break here and you can drink some water, and again you can come back to here. So let me again tell you how MVC finds this view for this contact action method. It's very simple. Like MVC checks, MVC reads out the URL from here. Let me go to contact. It will, to render this output, it will first go to home controller. In home controller we have this, in home controller we have this contact action method. Now the next thing is that how MVC prepares this view, or in other words how MVC render this view. So it's just returning a view. So when it's returning a view, MVC looks the action method name and it finds the contact.html view inside the views folder, and inside views folder we have 2 folders, or we may have 3, 4, 5 or 6 folders. So in which folder MVC will find the view? MVC will find the view inside the home folder. Why? Because the controller name is home. So it's very simple. If I run this action method or this action method, let's say about, the MVC will find the about.cshtml view inside home folder because the controller name is home. So this is how MVC finds the view related to some action method. So one thing is confusing so far, which is that when we go to home, if I change it back to, if I press Ctrl Z and if I again convert this action method to action, it's a return type to action result, and if I again press Ctrl F5 and if I run it, you will see the index action method is being rendered. So this is the index action method, but we are missing the complete URL here. We are not having here home/index. So let me manually type it, home/index, and you see the same output here. And if I go to about, I see the exact URL, but if I go to home/index, I see this output. But if I again click on home, the complete URL is omitted. This is because the home/index route is the default route. So whenever you run your application for the first time, and this is the action method which gets invoked. So where these settings are defined in our project, everything has some kind of configuration. If this page is being rendered, how MVC knows that by default I have to render this page? In other words, how MVC knows that I have to render the home/index action method by default. And why it is omitting this? Because if I do not write anything and I just write the localhost and port number and I hit enter, I get the same view. So this is because this is the default page, and the default page URL is omitted by default. So MVC omits the default URL information, but it shows all the information of the links that are not default. So if I go to home, the complete URL is omitted. But how it is possible? Let me show you how MVC is defining this home/index action method as the default action method. So for that, let me go to app start folder, and in here you see the file route config, which stands for route configurations. So let me double click it, and this file is open. Here you find the reason how MVC is defining home/index as the default URL. So if you see here, we have got this routes.ignore route line of code. For now, let's ignore this line of code and let's jump to this line of code. So here we are going to define the routes.map route thing, and here we are naming this route name as default. You can name anything, like it's a string, you can name it anything. So by default its name is default because this is the default URL route, and the URL expression should be something like this. Whenever we write the URL, we should write first the controller name, then we write the action or the action method name, then we write any ID if there is, and the ID parameter is optional because, let me again show you something. This is the controller name, so controller name is we are placing the controller name first, then we put slash, we put this slash after the controller name, then we write the action method name or action name, which is about, and then we have to write the ID, and the ID parameter is optional, which is defined here. ID is equal to URL parameter dot optional. So ID parameter is optional. ID might be something like, if we put slash here and we write 1 2 3, but ID parameter is optional. That is why this about action method is still rendering, because ID parameter was optional. So let's come back. So this is the default, this is just the URL name, this is the regular expression which defines that first should be the controller name and then should be the action method name. Let me reverse it and let me show you something. Let me write action method name first, about, and then I write the controller name home. So it's saying that the resource cannot be found, and this is technically true because MVC is reading this first parameter as the controller name, and we do not have any kind of controller in our controller folder which whose name is about. We have just one controller with home, but we are passing the controller name as about, so there is no controller. So inside about controller there should be a home action method. So it's very funny because we do not have home about controller, and inside that we do not have any home action method. So let me again change it back to home/about, so you can see the output here. So this is the default URL that is being defined here. So this is the answer to the question that how MVC knows to render the index action of home controller. So we are defining the default route here. The controller name is home. We want to invoke the index action method of home controller whenever our application is running for the first time. So another question may rise. Let me show you one thing. If I want to if we want to hit this action method by default, what change I need to make? I just need to change the action method name, because now we want to run the about action method of home controller whenever we run the application. So if I run it, control F5, or you can press F5, you can see the default URL complete information is omitted. The complete information here means the controller and the action method name is omitted. But something is interesting now, because now about is by default URL, the default URL, so the complete information of URL is omitted. But if I click on home, now you can see this is now showing the complete URL, because the home/index URL is no more default. So because about action method is default, so it's omitting the complete URL. But even if you write it manually, home/about, it will throw the correct output. So other action methods work like normal views and normal URLs, but the about action method is working like the default URL. So let me change it back to index, control Z, and now again if I run it, it will be changed back to the home/index as the default URL. So you can see the output. And the next thing is, what if I want to make some other controller's action method as default? So in future, if you have a new controller, you should change the name to that controller. Let me add a new controller, or for that right click on controllers folder, add, a controller. Guys, if you are tired up, you should pause the video, you should have some rest, and you can again come back and start from here. So take your time to get relaxed, and then come back to here. So let me add MVC5 empty controller. Here you are also learning how to add a new controller in our MVC application. So I have to add a new controller. Let me name it as student controller. And one thing is very compulsory to point out here, that you should not omit you should not delete this controller keyword. If you delete it, you will find the errors, because MVC has added the controller keyword with your controller name as a postfix. So you do not need, you should not, you must not delete this controller keyword, otherwise you will find some error. So student is your controller name and this controller is the postfix for it. So just click add, you will see the controller over here. So one thing is very interesting, I show you here. This student controller is added. This is inheriting from controller base class, and if you delete this inheritance, this student controller will no more be a controller, and by default it has one action method index. One thing is very interesting, as soon as you add any controller, as you have added a student controller, so you see MVC automatically adds a folder named as your controller name inside your views folder. So inside views folder, student folder is added. So whenever you will add any view for this controller's action method, those views will be added over here. So for now this folder is empty, so let me add a view for this controller. So sorry, for this action method, let me change the action method to demo. You can name your action method anything you want. So I have student controller, inside I have an action method. Before I add any view, let me run the project, and we want to redirect to student controllers demo action method. So if I hit enter, you see this error, and this error is technically true because we have student controller, it's okay. We have demo action method, that's fine. Let me show you. We have students controller, our URL is okay. Over here we have student controller, we have demo action method, we have demo action method, this is also fine. But even then we are finding this error. Why is that? Because the view is missing. We know MVC works as model, views and controllers. So we have the controller name, we have action method name, and what is the view which should be rendering as response to this action method activation. So what are the locations MVC is by default going to search? MVC is by default going to search. It is going to root directory of your folder. This is the root directory. Inside that it is going to find the views folder. It is finding the views folder. Inside that it is by default searching for student folder, and we have this student folder, and inside that it is finding demo.aspx and demo.ascx. These are different type of views. student/demos student/demo.cshtml, vbhtml and so on. It's finding two locations for different views. Student folder inside views folder, inside that we are finding these views, and if it is not finding the view over there, it will search for the shared folder, and shared folder, if your view is present in student folder, it will run it, and if it is present in shared folder, it will run it. but in both of the folders we do not have any view. So this is the reason MVC is telling you the complete context aware error message that I am unable to find your view for this URL. We have controller name, right, we have the demo action method and it is also defined, but we do not have any view for this demo action method. So MVC has searched these locations for this view. So let's add a view. So to add a view, just right click anywhere in your action method. I want to add view for this action method. I right click somewhere here and I click on add view, and look at that, by default the view name is demo, because by default MVC will search for demo view inside the student folder inside the views folder. And because we are not adding any kind of model classes for now, we leave it as empty without model, and we want to use the layout page and we want to click add. So now you see that this view is automatically added inside the student folder of views folder, and MVC is smart enough to judge the location of where should the view of this action method be added. So by default the view of this action method should be present in the student folder inside views folder. So MVC automatically adds the view inside this student folder, and it has got just this heading. You can skip it here, you can delete it, and you can customize this view in whatever way you want. Let me add heading 3 and demo view practice inside student controller or something like that. And if I now again run the project, control F5 or press F5, and let me go to student controller and demo action method. Now you can see the output, and so far we have learned how to create an MVC application, and how to what is the convention of ASP.NET MVC to run some specific URL like this. Like we have to first pass the controller name, and the second one is the action method name. And then we learned how MVC is finding this default view, and we know that we have defined that over here. And next thing was what if I want to make the index section method of home controller as default. We will just change over here. And now next thing is that we have learned is how to add a new controller. And next we have learned if the action method is defined but the view is missing, what will be the error message, and what locations the MVC will search. It will search 2 locations, the controller names folder here, and under that the demo.cshtml. If it is not present, it will search for that view inside shared folder. If it is not present in both of the folders, it will throw the error. And next thing is how to add the view for a specific action method. And now we understand, and we want to learn, what if I want to make this student controller's demo action method as a default URL. We want MVC to run the demo action method of student controller as as a default URL. So for that, what things you need to update? Just you need to update the controller name here as student, and the action method name is demo. Now you will see if I run it, control F5, by default the student slash demo URL will be fired. So it will take a while. Let's wait a while. So you can see here now the demo slash let me rewrite it, student slash demo is being rendered, you can see, and now home is no more default URL, so it is, and that is why it is showing the complete path over here. So let me again change it back to home slash index, save it, rerun it. So this is how ASP.NET MVC URLs work, and we have learned how to add new controller, how to modify the URL, how to understand why the default URL do not have any kind of controller name and action method name here, and what should we pass first here and what should we pass second here, and what is the regular expression. We have discussed it, and the next thing is to pass some kind of ID inside our views and reuse it. So if you are tired up, you should have some break, you should go outside, you should play something with your friends and fellows, and when you are fresh you should get back and you should start over. So hope so you are fine. So let me go to home controller and let me pass some ID here. Let me write here int ID, it accepts some kind of ID. Let me change it back to string, and if I am changing it, the return type is string, so the view we cannot return a view to a string. So before I explain ID, I should explain what is this return type. Guys, we know that whenever a function is returning something, whatever it returns, the return type should accept it, should afford it. The very simple example is that if I return an integer here, the return type of this function should be int here. Like if I return 222 here, it throws an error, cannot implicitly convert the type int to action result. So if I change it to int, now there is no error. So if I remove it, there is no error. So if I change it to a string, something like, so it would expect cannot implicitly convert string to int, so we need to change it to string. So if we are returning a view, so we have to change it to action result. So if you are wondering why we are not changing it to like view result, you can do it, but the good practice is to use the action result. You can also run it. So let me run the project. By default index home slash index should run. So you can see that this action method is working even if we have changed the return type to view result. So you can also put view result, but the good practice is to use action result, because action result has more things to do as compared to view result. So we want to learn what if we want to pass ID, because if we see here, the ID parameter is optional, and if we are going to write some URL, we first write the controller name, then we write the action method name, then we write the ID if there is any. So let me show you how to play with IDs. So let me go back to home controller and let me pass some ID over here, and just we want to reuse it, and we want to show you people how to use the IDs of action methods. So the ID that is passed is, we concatenate this string with this ID, this ID, the ID that the user will pass. So we are concatenating the this string with this ID, and this error is being thrown because we are returning a string, but here the return type is action result. So I change it back to string. Now there is no error. So we know that by default this action method runs home/index. If I rerun it, control F5, you will see something like, let's check it. We are finding this error because home/index is expecting an ID from you. So because int can never accept null, so that is the reason this default URL is not firing up. Let me completely write it to escape from any kind of confusion. So again you can see that index action method accept an int 32 kind of integer. So an optional parameter must be referent type, a nullable type, or be declared as an optional parameter. So the one solution is to make this ID optional. For that you can write question mark here. Now there is no need of the ID. So if I again rerun it, so now let's check it. You can see, because we have made this parameter optional, now this action method is working, but there is no value inside this ID. So this is outputting as this ID. This is this is the ID that is passed. Sorry, we just write the ID is, and if I rerun it, you can see the output. So the ID is, and we are not passing the ID, that is why ID is missing. Let me now pass the ID, home/index/22. So now you can see the output here. So if we pass the ID, it will accept it, but if I do not make it nullable, I must have to pass the ID to run this home/index, and if I pass the ID, now it's not throwing any kind of error. So what if you are passing two IDs? Let me pass another ID as string name. So how to invoke this action method? So let me rerun it, control F5. Let me pass the ID, home/index. It's throwing the error. So first ID should be passed as 1 2 3. First ID was the first parameter was the integer, and the second parameter is the ID, is the name. So to pass the second parameter, you have to put question mark here. You put the first parameter value here, like I have given the ID value. Now I want to give the name value. So for name parameter, for the second parameter, you put question mark, you write the variable name, you write the parameter name, and you put the equal sign, and then you pass the value of that parameter as here. So now you can see the output is being rendered, but we are not using this name variable in our action method. Let's use the name parameter as well. The name is, and let me concatenate the name here, name whatever the name we are passing in. So let me rerun it, and let me pass the parameters. ID is 123, question mark, the second parameter name is name, and the value for that parameter is Yasir. And now you can see that the ID is 123 and the name is Yasir. So that's how you can pass the ID, and you can pass multiple parameters, and you can reuse it. You can reuse them. So what if I want to pass third parameter? Let me pass the third parameter as you may say age. I say it as int age, and how to invoke, and let me concatenate this string. Age is, and we concatenate the age value over here. And if I again rerun it, so how to write the parameter values if we have three parameters in the action method: controller name, then action method name, then the parameters. So first parameter value should be passed as so, and then question mark, second parameter name, its value, then AND operator, and third parameter, then if there is fourth, then AND operator, fourth parameter, then if there is next one, and so on. So third parameter, for third parameter you put AND, and the third parameter name is age is equal to 24, and you press enter, and you can see the output here. The age is Yasir and age is 24. We should give some space. The name is name and age is this one. So let's quickly rerun it. Now you can see it. So this is how we can pass our parameters to our action methods, and we have learned how to pass the optional parameter, how to pass two parameters, how to pass three parameters, how to pass how to reuse the parameters, and so on. So hope so you have learned many things in this tutorial. I will highly recommend you to make notes of this tutorial, and you have to practice all the things very clearly. Pause the video, watch the video again and again, because this is the very basic video. If you put enough practice on this video, you will be very confident moving on, and I will keep on making such kind of beginner and intermediate level videos, because when I was learning ASP.NET MVC, I was having many difficulties. So whatever the difficulties I faced, when learning ASP.NET MVC, I want to remove those ambiguities in my series. So hope so you are enjoying my videos. If there are any suggestions, every kind of suggestion is warmly welcome. I am also a student. A person is a student in his or her own life, whole life. So I highly recommend to pass any comments that may help me to improve the video. I mean to say the method I am teaching, the method I am trying to pass my knowledge to you people, and I will highly appreciate if you share the things with me. You should comment in the comment section below. So that's it for this tutorial, guys. This was yummy. Yeah, this was yummy tutorial. You guys learned a lot of things, I hope so. So that's it for today. Let's see you in the next video. Goodbye.